thank the folks that tried to take the hotel network last night and made me go sleep earlier. So thank you for the jet lag. I woke up at 2 a.m. and really, happy about that. So I wonder what will be the conference that people will also try and take the cell phones out too, not only the laptops. I'm sure that will happen too. Maybe not here, but other places where I have noted that is happening as well. When Dylan, talked to me about coming here and talking at the conference, I could have chosen to speak about multiple different things. Throughout my career, I've been doing multiple different things from pen testing to trying and building stuff to last. And I decided to talk about, my vision of how I see things go in security rather than this vulnerability or that latest vulnerability. It kind of reminded me, something that had happened to me 10, 12 years back. I woke up one day, from a nightmare. And the nightmare was, wow, maybe we'll just solve all the problems in security and we'll all lose all our jobs. It took me 5 minutes and a cup of coffee to understand that it was really not a nightmare, but it was like a funny dream. Seems like security gets more and more complicated as we go, and things that we thought that we have eliminated or long solved are coming back to haunt us. So instead of learning from our experience, we get to do the same type of mistakes all over again. Speaking to Dylan yesterday, we mentioned IoT. The joke is that IoT, in some cases, it's so 1980s. We can do speed of depth. We can test the protocol stack. We look at that and ask ourselves, couldn't they just buy a better TCP/IP stack or just take it from a much more better source? This also holds true for other things. If some of you had looked at voice over IP, that all the folks that came from the traditional telephony thought that they could just imply everything they had done there to voice over IP, and they created some interesting holes back in the day that they created the concepts and the various specs. So I'm here to speak about something, different. And the way that we have, our technology affect security. So I decided to start with an old security model, the castle. How many of you know the castle and how a castle works? The defense, kind of pretty basic, right? So if you're in medieval times, you want to live here, right? It's static defenses, that everything is kind of deployed at your disposal. You have all those cool stuff. And of course, the idea here is to try and focus on defending the king and the treasure, right? And pretty much when you look at the castle and you ask yourself why the castle model had failed at the end of the day, can someone tell me what happened that this became obsolete? Gunpowder. So when technology advancement was made, the security model basically went down with it. Because the last place that we wanted to be happened to be the castle. And that's how the open warfare started. But if you look at the castle model and you try to use it as an analogy to how we do security today, it pretty much fits the bill. We have static defenses. It used to be that the location of the data was critical because we were creating data and we were accessing data only within the perimeter. We have multiple different point products that operate within their own silos, but kind of within their own defenses without collaboration between each other. And literally we deploy everything, but most importantly, we have control which substitute trust, and we also have the binary and static trust model, which you either granted or denied access. And based on that, you basically have the keys to the kingdom. So if you look at the castle, it's pretty much synonymous to the security model that we have today. Okay? You can stop me with any comment, ask me what direction I'm going here, but looking at this, our security model also failed. Because there were some forces within technology that basically deemed it obsolete. We can argue about this all day, one of my favorite topics, but if you look at mobility, collaboration, and BYO, and you think about how we do security, then you understand that something is completely wrong here. Because if in the past, and I've been a CISO in my past, before people came into my room, I could tell them no. I had a, transparent glass door, and some people I knew what they were trying to ask me, and I would do no throughout the glass door, and they wouldn't even come through the room. Seriously. That was years and years back. But today, our whole experience changed because the user experience drives changes in the way that we do business. So security is important, but somehow it slid through where do you apply it? And things like mobility and collaboration, and then followed by BYO, created a situation in which we need to allow anytime, anywhere access to resources, literally from any user and from any device. And that's a given. It's not even something that is being debatable. The other really interesting thing is that when you look at this, you also understand that the attack vectors that one may use in order to potentially harm you now exponentially grew. So it's not about attacking the organization through the traditional means, it's attacking the organization through individuals, and sometimes through other organizations that are doing business with them, or through individuals that just consume services. So suddenly the attack vectors that used to be known and narrow are now coming from everywhere. Think IoT again now and see how much this is going to change the way we do security too. Or learn from the voice over IP experience where every dumb terminal back in the PSTN day now becomes smart terminal because you have functionality, you have a way to interact with the entire VoIP system, and you can start to see where things are going to change in the future too. Now when you look at the trust model, I'm sure that you guys, when you go to your jobs, someone came to you and said, hey, here's your laptop, right? Here's your credentials. And they fortify the laptop, right? This looks like the laptop is heavily fortified and they not allow you to do X, Y, Z, forcing you going through proxies, deploy additional security needs, etc., etc. And then with your username and password, you can literally access a lot of different things without being stopped where you are within your perimeter. But when you're using your own device, And when you're accessing resources from locations that we don't know if they're trusted, aka the local network here, right? The fact that you have credentials does not really play into it. So the fact that we use the devices to substitute trust for control because of ownership is no longer something that we can use as well. The last but not least is the fact that if we want it or not, data is everywhere. In the sense that not only that we are creating data outside of the perimeter, but the data itself will get out there if we want it or not. So we need to find a way to make sure that the data is protected wherever it goes, regardless of the consumption of the applications and creation of data that we have in the cloud. Any questions until now? Okay. So to illustrate this slightly better, we used to compute with resources in the data center from our traditional computing devices. And now we do this across SaaS applications and using infrastructure as a service and platforms as a service. But we also are using other computing devices too. So, these type of devices that are getting extremely exciting because, this device eventually will replace our computer. So for those of you who missed Microsoft's announcement of their latest devices, the one thing that was really exciting for me, not because I like Windows 10 on the mobile phone that much, but the idea and the creativity of taking a Lumia 750 and using the continuum feature of connecting it to an external screen, keyboard, and mouse, and here you go, you are able to use your Office applications in a full-blown computer mode. So the devices we knew for traditional computing are now changing to completely different devices and capabilities because of the compute power. And so does our ability to interact. So any of those computing devices can interact with any of those services, applications, and data capabilities wherever they are. It creates an interesting problem for us where we need to make sure that we secure this interaction. So wherever the applications are, wherever the data is created, we need to make sure that that interaction is secure. And if you look at the use cases that you can have here, the use cases are vast. You can't come and say, oh, I have 3, 4 informational paths that I can identify and I just look at them and I'll secure them and it'll be over. I tried, believe me. You have multiple different interesting paths for you to consume those services, applications, and data, and also for the data itself to manifest across those clouds. Because a lot of people forget the cloud interactions. So there are multiple ways for the interaction to happen here, which we need to take into account. And also the fact that now it's been, people like to put their numbers around how much percentage of data will be created in the cloud versus in the perimeter. I don't know about you guys, but my data is never created within the perimeter anymore. It's been ages and ages since I created it within the perimeter. But, the folks from some analyst firms estimate that more than 60% of the data we will create outside of those perimeter walls by 2020. I look at my kids, the kids that don't know what a real phone is, and their data will never be created in the perimeter ever. So when they interact with the world, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old interact with their iPad with the world, that's the way that they will try and interact when they will be older. with their phones and with their whatever computer device will be there, but they're not going to be looking into the traditional ways of doing this anymore. So this brings us into looking at the new perimeter. So the old perimeter, we know how it looked like, and we know how it was defined. But in my mind, the new perimeter is actually every one of you. Every one of you that is using services, applications, and the data that are being consumed here is a perimeter by itself. It is a perimeter by itself because at the end of the day, it becomes the unit that needs to be secured, and the information that is being consumed by using those applications and services is the information that needs to be protected. So when I look at this, and also look at the transformation that IT is actually would have to go through from managing devices to managing policies, I remind myself of, 17, 18 years back when I started, working in, tech. I've been a Unix system admin, as all good people start from. And, I look at today, and we're actually going backwards. We're going backwards to the original definition of what information security is all about. Because if you look at this, we, at the end of the day, need to secure information. Because IT lost control over literally everything. The devices, the users, and even its own infrastructure. But the last thing that IT still has, and our organizations still have, is the information. And this is actually the definition of what information security is all about. So it took us only nearly 20 years to come back to square one. It doesn't happen too often, but it does. Because if you look at the compute way, if you still remember mainframes, the more notable people in the crowd, some people will tell you that mainframe reminds them of cloud. And the way they were interacting with the mainframe pretty much reminds them of cloud today. So when I talk to some of our elderlies, back at Intel, they tell me, hey, it's nothing different. It's like you just change the name, but the interaction is the same type of interaction. And that's actually a very interesting thought. So, also from the information security perspective, we're again at square one. So, I used to have a sentence from the metrics here, buckle up, Dorothy, because chaos is going bye-bye. Like, I think it's pretty much going back to the places that we all know, but we actually need something slightly different in order for us to be able to manage this risk, because the threat landscape completely changed. What we do today completely changed. The way that we consume information completely changed. I look at you all, and what do you pick up in order to quickly access stuff to pick up your phone, right? I still remember back in 2000, people talking about, we can buy stuff with our phone. We use the phone for buying, stuff from vending machines. And you look at them like crazy. Why the hell do I want to use my phone to buy stuff from vending machines? And soon we're not going to use anything other than our phone in interaction in order to buy stuff, as this already started to happen. So all of this, advancements in technology, again, push us back to years and years back, and needs to remind us of what we actually need to do and come back to basics, but with a different approach to how we do this. Any questions until now? We're all good? Some of you are clearly, had a rough night last night. Yes.
Well, when we did, at this point, I would probably not disagree, but I'm not sure whether you really have the information to data because this is two different things.
Absolutely, you're right. Information is actually services and data, according to me, at least.
Okay,
So it is the consumption of services. It's actually also accessing the data. So in my head, when I look at this, it's basically the access and the data come together. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So good question, thank you. So, how can we match a security model to this problem? And when I looked at this, I tried to find another, analogy that would be interesting and simple to grasp. And I looked at the airport security problem, and pretty much reminded me of the same issue that we have today. So, if you look at airport security, there are four main problems that the security folks at the airport have to look after. The four are very simple. Anyone that goes to the airport and is stopped by security can claim they need to be there. I came to welcome a friend, I need to pick up a package, etc., etc. The other interesting thing is that anyone can actually buy a flight ticket. That's true because the no-fly lists are connected to the airport, not connected to the airlines. The third item is the fact that airport security does not have control over what you pack and where your luggage has been since you packed it. But the fourth one is the most problematic. Airport security cannot open all luggage, so they cannot search everything. So they actually have the anywhere, anytime problem at the airport looking at passengers that needs to board planes. Same type of problem. So how they go about this? And of course, not all airports are alike. Does someone know which airport is this? You can tell? This is my favorite airport of all, my home airport in Israel. How many of you had the pleasure of going through there? Okay, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's a unique setup, okay? And when you look at the perimeter defenses, you need to be nuts to try to go through them. Seriously, nuts. If you go through Wikipedia and you read about how the airport is defended, good luck. If you decide to do that, if you still pass, the different things that happen between the outer perimeter and the inner perimeter, yeah, maybe you're a MacGyver or something. But the easiest route is actually through the airport entrance. And the airport is actually using layers and layers of security in the perimeter and inside the perimeter to do unique things that are not done in any other airport. And the one unique thing that they're doing is called the human factor method. The human factor method is actually a method that enables the airport security personnel to dynamically assess the risk coming from different passengers that needs to board the plane. And the way that they're actually doing this, before checking, there is a security point, and security personnel will come and ask you a ton of questions. And those questions will be weird, seriously. Even for an Israeli, hearing them, asking those type of questions, it's like, they will try to attest for who you are. They'll try to attest for your documents. They'll ask you, why have you decided to come to Israel and waste your precious dollars on us? Seriously. They'll ask you if you came for business or pleasure. They'll ask whether you have relatives, Hebrew. Where have you visited? And sometimes they'll ask you even to describe the places that you have been, to literally try and connect the dots and understand, if you're telling the truth or if you're lying. There are other questions. So this might be 2-3 minutes, and this might take an hour, depending on the type of answers that you're going to provide. There are other mechanisms to attest for you as well. So, for example, if you come to visit us from abroad, we're actually sending your, picture page from your passport to the authorities and vouching for you and saying, hey, this guy is actually coming here for work. So we're providing additional attestation, and what you actually do here, you just, give them the paper and they leave you alone. But what actually are they doing here? They're actually using multiple attributes at the time of access in order to assess the risk that one may pose to flight. Okay? Very simple to understand. Some will say, hey, this is profiling, this is whatever it is. We managed to call the shoe bomber when he arrived to Israel because they're using this both ways, by the way. When you disembark the plane and when you go on the plane. So they actually called the shoe bomber when he disembarked coming from London and sent him back on his merry way. So how this actually works is pretty fascinating because it is very invasive, right? But it is effective. But what if we could use the Israeli security, Israeli airport security way, but with a completely different user experience? How many of you experience this? TSA free? You pay $100 if you want, not to be selected like me. I can't pay the $100, but happy to be TSA free. Coming, you don't need to do anything. You literally know the people, if you pass through the same airports, same people from TSA are there, say hello, you pass through the metal detectors, that's it. What we actually need, we need to combine. We need to combine the, invasive method with a better user experience. So if we are able to assess security at the time of consumption, but have a complete transparent user experience or something that is much like it, then we will win. There is actually a very good example for that. How many of you have iPhones? Okay, usually 90-something%. The fingerprint reader is a hell of a great example of a tech that is literally transparent for you, used for security, right? But you don't think about it when you use it. That's why we get those large bills from Apple when we buy shit at the Apple store, because we don't think about it. Because they have done a tremendous and amazing job at taking a security technology and make it consumable by the masses. And that's a great example to look at that. So what if we can take the way that we assess security from the airport and we actually can apply it to information security? What if we can take the same type of methodology, but instead of giving you a hell of a worse user experience, we will still be able to assess your risk using context to understand what are the access rights and what are the privileges that you need to get when you are trying to consume information. So instead of the traditional methods, we need a much more holistic description of this moment you're in, the situation. And you're actually looking at what do I need to have in order to access the resources? And you look at this as a complete picture rather than as isolated items. No longer the way that you identify yourself stands by itself. It needs to be connected with things like the location that you're in, the device you're using, the type of security controls and mechanisms that you may use. Reputation of yourself, your device, the location you're in, the applications you're using, and the services you're consuming. No longer, we will see this coming in my mind very soon because there's no other way of doing this. But you take all of this information on this side of the source and you try to match it on the fly with the destination. What is this information that you're trying to consume? Where it is? Is it sensitive? What is the type of access that you're trying to get? And you try to match them on the fly. So the type of attributes you collect about this whole situation determines the type of access that you are getting. And this allows you literally, as long as you're able to collect those attributes, to request and get access from literally any device. And the way that you authenticate and the way that your security mechanisms are deployed throughout those various devices determines the access and the level of authorization that you may also be granted, due to the fact that you're not going to allow anybody to come with any device with zero security and consume top secret information. You may still allow them to bring their own device, but as long as they're using the rightful security mechanisms that are properly provisioned, you will allow them to access the resources. The difference is that you can play with this swing and allow the consumption far more on a wider scale, understanding all of those various attributes and replacing the board security model with something completely different, which takes multiple different attributes that at the end of the day cannot be falsified in order to determine the access that needs to be granted to those resources. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Reputation. What's the weighting factor you use for that?
So I'll give you some examples. Location. Assuming that you are, in a hotel network, right? That's a great example. A famous coffee shop that we're not going to name the brand. Public libraries. You can very easily measure the type of security that those locations offer. So you can determine whether they're using credentials to grant you access, whether they're using proper encryption, whether they are able to go about and enable you to have much more security between you and the device. Or like here, they don't care about someone spoofing the, access point and just calling themselves the host for the network. So as long as the security attribute for that wireless location advances such as the reputation, plus you can also measure by crowdsourcing whether you had seen at that location attacks or someone trying to mess with you and what is the frequency. And this is something that is not static, but rather very much dynamic, because one day it can be X, and the next day it can change to be something completely different. Does this answer your question? And so this is actually an art, and there are a lot of questions about some of it. So are we gonna measure the reputation of people like a credit score? Right? Happy, that I don't need to talk about privacy, but can we actually measure our identities as far as trusted reputations? I'm not talking about black hats and just normal us people. Can we do this based on our digital activity? At the end of the day, if we want it or not, we will get there. We will get there. I mean, whether I'll say it or not, at the end of the day, That's the sum of all of our activities if you think about this. And as is, some organizations may have the ability to do this looking at our digital activities. So eventually, what you will be able to do using different devices you'll be using in order to do the job that you want to do, etc., will also be influenced by the history of usage and who you are in the digital world. Pretty scary, but if you think about the XYZ company that we're using for XYZ, they have that information already. If you are authenticated to their services, they know basically everything about what you're doing as is on this. Nothing, near to this crowd. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about use reputation as any kind of security attribute. So I started trying to pass security and grow several reputation-based skills. Because you don't build a reputation of what you're going to do. Like people that have reputation, they will cause it like highest damage actually. So the kind of, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'd say that there are.
I'm not saying that you need to use everything that is listed here. This is, again, a visionary look at the world. So you may say, some organization, by the way, may come and say, you know what? When I look at location, for me it's great to say, don't come from an embargo country. That's good for me. That's my stuff. Some will come and say, if you're not from Wisconsin, don't access my services. Well, I don't know. That's their policy. Who cares? It's their problem. Some will say, I don't care about this. And some will say, yeah, I do care about this. And some will come and invent their own list of other attributes that are of their interest and for their usage. So there's no right and wrong here. The concept is that we're moving from, here's my username and password and maybe my certificate, and now I have the key to go and do what I want to. Oh, let's stop for a second. Let's really assess automatically the situation which I'm in. I want a knowledgeable system, like actually I had been notified by some of my tools here that, yeah, someone is playing with the router last night. And yes, the certificates are not the right certificates, but someone decided that his certificates are better than whatever I was accessing. Awesome, fine. But I need the expert system to tell me. And that's actually part of the problem that we have with security today, because we don't have that expert system telling my mother-in-law, God knows how much I love her, not to click on the dancing kitties, and then complaining that the computer doesn't work anymore. So that's part of the issues that we're actually having. So if we can embed this within the core ways that we compute, and we can start looking at some attestation around this, that will change the way that we're actually doing, security in this new brave compute world, rather than looking back at stuff that we know that we cannot, rely on anymore. And this will take, its own course, because on every new perimeter that is you, and your devices, this will allow us to actually introduce security in a completely different way, and actually allow you to do what you want. What you want is you use your device in order to get your job done, right? You want to pick up whatever device is best for you, so you will feel comfortable enough to do what you want to do, right? That's actually the problem of security, because people are not listening in the security world. They're not listening to the consumers. The consumers are saying, I want a user experience which is as transparent as possible. And it's kind of funny because they're saying, I don't want to know that there is security there. Right?
It's not us that we need to worry from. Yeah, you guys will put whatever password and other needs and 2 factors and some other stuff. No problem. We've been doing this for many, many years since the first RM/-RF incident anyone here suffered from when they were teenagers. But in that sense, we know the outer world, but the masses don't. So if we listen to what they want to do, they want security, they don't want to feel it, but they want to walk with it, and they want to use it in a complete transparent manner. They want to know that it's there, then we will win. But if we'll continue to hit the wall over the user experience angle, nothing that we will do, PKI, will, be able to actually achieve what needs to be achieved. So we're able to do this type of things today and enable that experience without, getting our users to lose their hair and go crazy. And when you look at the world now, with any type of compute and the services and data that are being consumed from different cloud services, and think how this can be applicable to those, then you'll understand that they will be applicable 100% to any scenario, whether your service, applications, or data reside wherever they feel like. Of course, there are other parts here that, would mandate another 4 hours of discussion, but these are the concepts that I really will be important to secure the world of today and tomorrow. Any questions? Yes.
On one of the previous slides, you had the security attributes of information. I would say that those are security attributes of data. But especially in the Internet of Things, like basically in any set of physical application, but also it's relevant to the airport security. We also have to verify that people don't talk often about security property of data, which is trustworthy or veracity. So for example, like in the set of physical world, whenever we have sensors, the data originated in the physical world. So if you will influence the way how the data is captured, and then so basically IT, that is integrity and availability, but if the data is already wrong when it is fed into the infrastructure, then the wrong data is transmitted to the destination, and actually your information will be already wrong. So the data, the original data was already wrong. And it's also relevant to the airport security. The agent, basically the human, is communicating with false information, then you will extract false, what was it?
Great question. So for example, I actually did a study about this when I had the analogy. I studied what the hell they're doing next in airport security. It's actually fascinating. So what they want to do, it's scary as shit, but still it's interesting. They want to completely remove the people from the airport. And they want to put you in front of a machine that will be able to measure your face and the different way that your face reacts to the questions that you're presented. And by that, they will be able to automatically, and in 99.99%, identify if you're lying, if you're nervous, and if there's a problem with you. So use biometrics, something that actually works. I actually see it. I had to study and use the right analogy in order to make sure that in 99.99% of the cases, the information that you're providing will not be falsified. Now, when we say, hey, user identity, I'm not saying, hey, just provide me your credentials and you're all great. No, there are levels here that can be applied. So, username, password, additional certificate, biometrics, stuff that is attested, etc. There are levels of attestation that can be applied to the attributes as well. So it's a complete weighting system according to how the information was acquired and according to what type of attestation we apply to the attributes that were gathered. And that is extremely important to take before that point, because if not, then again, it will be as weak as the collection mechanism. But the idea is that the collection mechanism will advance with it as well. So, I actually see the red dot here. Any other question? Going once? I see fish coming here to pick me out. Cool. So thank you very much for your time today. I really enjoyed this. Enjoy the conference.